Hello Pottery people, this is Lulu, and in this video we will be painting this adorable Give Thanks platter. As always, all of our supplies will be listed on the lesson plan, so let's get started. So to begin, we're going to trace the pumpkins onto the center of our platter, and for that we have the instructions on how to do that on the lesson plan, so you're more than welcome to read through that first before you carry on. But once you're done with that, you're going to use a pencil to create some grid lines over the platter. You want to make sure that they overlap from one end to another, and I'm just doing some horizontal and some vertical. Fit however many you feel comfortable with, and keep in mind that they don't have to be perfect just because there are guiding lines, but you're more than welcome to use a ruler or something like that if you need a little bit of more of a straight edge. Before I put any paint down, I'm going to use my hand to rub off any excess graphite. So now what we're going to do is we're going to paint those grid lines we created using the pumpkin pie fun writer. And with the fun writer, you want to make sure that you have the fun writer pin nearby, just in case the tip gets clogged or anything like that. You also want to go kind of fast. You want to squeeze the bottle as you should, and keep in mind that you can always practice on the table first on a piece of paper or something like that, just to know how much you need to squeeze to get a nice straight line. Just want to show you guys how I avoided the pumpkins, just to ensure that the lines didn't show through the other colors when I paint them on top. So for the next step, after you're done with your grid lines, you're going to use a medium round brush and 1 to 2 coats of water yolk to paint the first pumpkin. Next, we're going to rinse off the brush, and with it we're going to paint the second pumpkin with 1 to 2 coats of orange crush. We're going to switch to a small round brush, and with the tip of it we're going to paint the accent lines on the first pumpkin using orange crush. And these lines are just curving lines that come upwards from the bottom of the pumpkin towards the top. The idea is to give it that kind of 3D effect, making it look a little bit more realistic. Next, we're going to get back to our medium round brush, and with it we're going to paint the last pumpkin using 1 to 2 coats of pumpkin pie. Once we're done with our last pumpkin, we're going to switch to the small round brush, and with it we're going to paint the accent lines again using pumpkin pie on the orange crush pumpkin. Next, we're going to rinse off the small brush, and with it we're going to paint the accent lines on the last pumpkin with mochaccino. So keep in mind these are just some quick little lines curving up. They don't have to be perfect, and about 1 to 2 coats is enough. So with the same brush, we're going to paint the stem of the first pumpkin using 1 to 2 coats of mochaccino. Now we're going to let things dry a little bit, but in the meantime we're going to use a pencil to sketch gently all the laurels, the leaves, and the flowers where they're going to be painted. For the flowers, you'll notice that I created just a simple asterisk with no more than 6 or 7 lines, and I'm going to build my flowers from there. Now we're going to use a detail brush, and with it we're going to mix a small amount of orange crush and simply cinnamon to create a duller orange than the orange we started with. Remember, the more of the darker color you add, which will be simply cinnamon, the darker or more muted the orange will become. So make sure that you keep that in mind while you're mixing your colors, and remember to start little and make more as you, or mix more as you go along. After you've mixed your color, you're going to use the detail brush to paint the laurels towards the top, and the two on the lower part of the platter, the ones that sit underneath the flowers. And for these, just make sure that you load your brush well and kind of create the shape, and then fill it in as you're going. Next, we're going to use the small brush to paint the flowers using 1 to 2 coats of simply cinnamon. To create each petal of the flowers, just dip the brush in paint, touch the surface where the petal will begin, and then gently drag the brush towards the center of the flower. Then you can repeat this step and make the flowers or the petals a little bit thicker as you're going along and things like that, but it's just best to start off with a line and then thicken it up as you go. Using the detail brush or the small brush, we're going to paint the larger leaves around the pumpkins, and then we're going to paint the smaller leaves around the flowers with 1 to 2 coats of pea soup. So for this, I highly suggest that you do the same thing we did with the laurels. Just kind of create the shape first, and then go in and fill it in with 1 to 2 coats of the pea soup color. Remember that with the detail brush, 1 to 2 coats are really easily accessible as long as you load your brush well and you spread the paint as you should. We're going to use a pencil, but you can use any dotting tool like a Q-tip or a sponge and a stick, and we're going to paint a few polar bear circles by the flowers. You can use the simplest guide, or you can just follow what I'm doing here, and I'm just making sure that they're large enough so that way when it comes time to outline them, I have the space I need for that. With Q-tips, we're going to paint the center dots inside the flowers with water yolk. You're going to press slightly and harder to get different sizes, or you can switch to a smaller brush for even smaller dots. So for this, it's just creating different variants of dots around the center of the flower, and that's all. Now I'm going to use the marker and the tissue paper to trace the writing on the center of the platter or in the middle of the pumpkins, and be careful with anything that's wet. So as you see, I cut my paper so that way it would be easier to fit into that space. Now I'm going to use the detail brush to go over the center writing with 1 to 2 coats of black lab. So keep in mind though, whenever I'm using my detail brush for writing, you want to make sure that you have one hand that's holding the platter and that the other one is the one that's doing the writing and things like that. This one needs to have the most movement and the most space. So I like to rotate my platter as I'm working or as I'm building my letters, just so that way I can make the platter work for me and it makes it a little bit easier. Make sure that if your paint feels a little too thick, you add a little bit of water to it, just a little bit to loosen it up. And apart from that, just take it easy, take it slow. You can start off with thinner lines and then thicken them up as you go. So with the Black Lab Fun Writer, we're going to outline all the flowers, the leaves, and pumpkins as you see on the image that I have at the beginning of this video. I would highly suggest that you start with the driest parts first and let whatever needs to dry alone till the time it's dry enough to be outlined. So as you see, I'm doing like all the flowers, the pumpkins and leaves, and I'm leaving the inside of the flowers till last. Lastly, we're going to use the medium square brush to paint the rim with Black Lab. And for the rim, I'm just doing little dashes by gently tapping the tip of the loaded brush onto the border or edge of the platter, and I'm skipping the space next to it. So that way I have a dash space until the rim is done. Here's a little close-up of the platter that we painted in this video. And I'm also going to show you the version of it fired, looking just as adorable. So thank you so much for painting with me today. Have a great one. Bye-bye.